Welcome to the Weekly Roar, coming live from the Lion's Den, helping new managers become great leaders and awesome bosses. And now, here's your host, Greg Storch.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Lion's Den. This is the Weekly Roar. I'm Greg Storch, the owner of Lion Enterprise, host of the Weekly Roar, and the founder of a worldwide bartered coaching program called The Helping Hand. I'm a certified professional leadership coach and a certified leadership speaker and trainer. So last week, I wrapped up my series called Effective Thinking, Your Pathway to Success. Now, this week, I want to take a little break before I begin my next series. So today, I'm going to share some highlights that came from my all-time favorite episode, and that came from back in April when I celebrated the 100th episode of the Weekly Roar. Now, during that episode, I gathered a panel of 6 leaders and invited them to join me for a discussion on consistency. And today, I'm going to share some of the highlights from that episode. So if you saw that entire episode, you know how powerful it was to get all of those people in the same room. Okay, the same Zoom room. But in case you missed it, I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version. But first, last week we came together in the Lion's Den and I spoke about the power of bottom line thinking as I wrapped up my series. I explained how we don't always have to focus on the financial bottom line in order to be successful. I shared that everything we do has a bottom line, and once we determine what that is, it serves as the measurement for all of our activities. Don't forget, if you weren't able to join us last Wednesday for the Weekly Roar, or if you need to catch up, or you just want to watch that session over again, you can access all of my free video resources on my website at www.lion-enterprise.com. Click on the Lion's Pride Library menu and look for video number 123 for last week. And while you're in the Lion's Pride Library, stick around and check it out. It's a free resource, and it's a great way for you to get more of the roar. All right, everyone. Again, welcome to today's episode. I recorded my 100th episode of the Weekly Roar back in April of this year, and I invited coaches, leaders, podcasters, and authors to join me in 1, a celebration of the milestone, and 2, to engage in a discussion about the power of consistency. I was joined by Melanie Ake, CEO of Make Connections for Life, host of Everyday Leaders 50 and 50 podcast, and the co-author of Mentoring Moments. Renee Michelle, she's the author of Battle Scars Are Beautiful, From Victim to Victory. She's a recovery coach, domestic violence advocate, and the Australian ambassador for the National Association for Adult Child Abuse Survivors. Paul Silva joined us. He's a certified professional coach, community creator, former professional chef, a writer, and a podcaster. Dennis LaRue, president of LDR Executive Coaching, a retired Air Force veteran, certified professional coach, and best-selling co-author of Endurance, Going the Distance from the Valley to the Mountaintop. And of course, Eric G. Reed, founder of Success Life U, a professional coach and owner of Skinny Brown Dog Media. And then last but not least, my good friend David McGlennon. He's the president of Impact Leadership Consulting, LLC, founder of the Emerging Leader Inner Circle, and a leading expert in corporate culture creation. So The episode started out by each of us speaking about what consistency meant to us. And here's what each of us had to say about consistency. And let's start this discussion talking about what does consistency mean to you?
I love this question. I started the mastermind about how to be consistent. And one of our other panel members, Eric Reed, jumped in and said, I'm going to help you. And so what I learned is bringing others in to your tribe to learn about how to be consistent, right? You want to learn something and you don't know how to do it. And so it's not a straight line. It's not linear. There's a lot of things that you have to think about, but what is your end goal, right? What's the goal on why you want to be consistent? And so you have to frame up your life to put all of those pieces into place so that you can be accountable. You know, we talk about kids that don't have structure versus they want structure. And when you decide that you are all in and you have skin in the game, you do everything in your life to make sure that that happens so that you can show up and you can add value to your life.
I'm going to go over to Renee. Renee, share a little bit more about what consistency means to you.
Yeah, look, for me, consistency is very much, personally for me, those things that you do in secret, in private, the unglorious moments that nobody else knows about. You know, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the early mornings, the non-glory moments. And in my life, definitely there has been decades of that. But in particular, when we're talking about when I started in business, I had a heart for what I wanted to do. I knew I had a message and I knew that it had the power to help people and change lives. But that was really all. So I knew my why, which is massive, and I'm sure we will talk more about that later. But I had the why, but I didn't have the systems. And I had to learn from scratch, from knowing nothing. And what I focused on, very much like Melanie said, was connections. So I spent the majority of my time really learning and gleaning from people, very much like I did in my recovery and healing journey. And I looked at people very much like all of you, and I started to model and see the things that I admired, and I became consistent in learning, growing, developing, and absorbing knowledge. And that is something that throughout my whole life has done me very well. So I followed that model and here I am. So I'm happy about that. So those unglorious moments are a big one for me.
You know, I love that you said that you were watching people and getting that behavior modeled for you. And there's a key reason why we need to be consistent, even as leaders, because people are watching us for modeled behavior. Now I want to hear from Eric. Eric, what does consistency mean to you?
I think when I began, it was like, just show up and do it. Just keep going. But then it became about integrity. And it was like, I said to self and to others that I was going to do this. And how we do the little things is how we do the big things. And so each morning when I finish, I always say, I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. I made that commitment to myself and to my community. And if I don't show up, I've broken that trust. And so consistency is almost that foundation, that pouring of the first slab for trust. And so consistency and trust run very parallel for me.
Hey, Dennis, what about you?
Consistency to me means this. It's doing the common things daily to achieve the uncommon in the future.
Write that down.
In other words, you start as a finger painter and you work from finger painter to learn the fundamentals and the basics so you can become an artist and a Picasso.
Paul, talk to us about consistency.
Yeah, Eric actually used a lot of the words I was going to use. To me, consistency is integrity, trust, and commitment kind of rolled into one. And it's essentially, giving myself a command and following it. and showing up energetically in a way that's in line with what I believe, in line with my goals. It's like praxis. It's action and belief kind of integrated and manifested in, like a lot of people saying here, like the little things, the things that that happen out of the spotlight, out of the limelight, and it's the things that I know that regardless if I don't feel like doing it, regardless if there's other things pulling my attention, if it doesn't quite capture my imagination that day, but I still do it because I know that there is a goal, and consistency it's a foundation for getting there. It's, and then, the other part that comes with is persistence. Now, persistence is more about overcoming obstacles and, pushing through in spite of what things may block you. But consistency is right behind there. And it's something that for me, whether it's my getting up at 4 a.m. every day, whether it's, posting in social media every day, whether it's doing my morning routine for just my spiritual growth, that adds up. And, when I don't do one of those things, it feels weird. And so that's what consistency means for me.
I'm going to wrap this question up with David and ask David what he thinks about consistency.
I want to start with what Melanie said, because she talked about deciding, and she said decide to be all in. And to me, I really resonate with that, because it's about habits. It's about creating habits and a way of being. And it goes then right into what Renee was saying. It's like doing the things that are not glorious. It's just getting up and having a morning routine, and whatever it is that you're wanting to do consistently, deciding to do it. And then, what Eric said about having integrity, it's when you decide, it's like nobody's going to know. If I don't get up at 5 a.m, who's going to know? My wife will know, but I'll know. And so it's really having that integrity, creating the habits to be able to do the things that you say you want to do, and then actually following through. So to me, it's all about habits and creating that consistent behavior.
Wow, that was awesome. So as a certified speaker, coach, and trainer with the John Maxwell team, I connected with many of my panel members through that organization. A lot of them, and maybe a lot of you, have read John Maxwell's book called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. If you haven't read this book, I highly encourage you to take a look at it if you want to become intentional about your own personal growth. I'm a firm believer that we have to start with ourselves, and this book will really set you up for success. So during the interview, I spoke to the panel members about one of the chapters in that book, and that was the chapter on the law of consistency. He has a chapter on the law of consistency, and in it, he wrote these words, and I want to quote them. And he said, small disciplines repeated with consistency every day lead to great achievements gained slowly over time. Thanks, David. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that in our world that we live in today, everybody wants things fast. We have microwaves, we have, fast food, we have drive-throughs, we're trying to get things on the run. And there is really something to be said about something developing over time. And that's why I think that habits are such a powerful tool for leaders and a powerful tool for really everyone. But to me, that quote talks about time, and it's just being able to put the work in, just like you putting the work in week after week after week, and that's what matters. It's showing up, and when you show up, you create the habit. Doesn't matter who's watching. Kind of to Renee's point earlier, it's like those inglorious moments. It really doesn't matter. But as you do those things over and over and over again, and it does take time. I mean, there's a story that I tell an awful lot about a guy trip that I went on, and we climbed a mountain, and it took a heck of a long time to get to the top. And when we summited, it was like 5 hours after we started, and it was not fun. But when we got to the top, man, it was great. And to your point, you could see the next mountain. You could see that second mountain. You think to yourself, oh, wow, I want to get there. But it's going to take some time to get there. So this quote is really, I think, all about time and being able to put the time in and not worrying about instant success.
Okay, Eric, come on. Let's do this. Let's talk about this quote that I just read.
When I hear that quote, or when I think of that reference, I think of like Dave's kids are very musical. When you first start out, you're focused down on your fingers and walking through the scale. And then as you go a little longer and you consistently work on that, then you start to look up at the music and then down at your fingers. It's not until you've done it long enough you start to actually hear the music. And then you begin to play with the music, and then you begin to play with the timing, and then you begin to add in other pieces. So often when we start out with consistency, we want to jump to creating an entire symphony. And it's not until we do that finger movement naturally that, for me, each and every morning, some people are like, how do you come up with so much content? In the beginning, I was like focused on every single finger placement. Mm-hmm. Now it's almost like content comes flowing to me because I don't have to focus on the basics. I don't have to focus on the fundamentals. I focus on this larger song that I'm trying to create. And so consistency, you gotta understand there's a long, as Renee said, there's a long period of just trying to line up the fingers on the right key at the right time.
Renee, what are you feeling about that?
Yeah, those types of quotes really hit me deep because, like I said, my journey took me such a long time. And if someone had said to me back when I first went, right, now is the time for change, I have to do something. If someone said, yeah, that's awesome, it's going to take you about 16 years, I probably would have curled up in a ball and started rocking back and forth. But the clincher for me was the pain of staying the same far outweighed the pain of whatever it was going to take to change. So those little things over time were so monumental to me. So even though we say the little things, to me, it meant everything. So it was those little things of choosing my environment, choosing who I listened to, choosing where I spent my time. Now, again, they sound like small things, but to me, it was literally life or death. It was literally things will stay the same, which you will die, or they will forever change. So it sounds little sometimes, but it was a no-brainer.
So when I think about this question, I think about me in corporate America and thinking how I showed up every single day to add value to someone. And I was always expecting someone to notice. I was always expecting that feedback of, are you going to recognize me? Am I going to be, evaluated or lifted up, or the opportunities that I saw for myself? But I began to realize as I started studying personal growth consistently, that it was about my belief in myself. And so when that started to change and I started to do consistent activities in my own personal growth, things became very clear that it was my responsibility to start changing my life. It wasn't anyone else's responsibility. And so that was the biggest aha, that be consistent, decide again what you want out of your life, and show up to add value to yourself first. And then things, just like we've all said, things start to come to you. The universe starts to respond to the things that you see for yourself. And it becomes very clear.
Dennis LaRue.
And when I finally ran a marathon, I remember going through the training process, and consistency first started with just lacing up the shoes and getting out the door.
There you go.
You got to get that down first. And then you put together the training plan, and then you start building those process and systems, a training partner. But it all starts, in order to be consistent, the definition talks about achievements. You got to know what the achievement is. And in the marathon, it's the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to get to the finish line, you got to leave the starting line. And you got to have steps each way. And you're going to hit a wall and you're going to face obstacles. But consistency through the training plan, consistency in the process, and belief that you're going to reach that finish line, eventually you get to that finish line.
This is gold, man. This is gold. Paul, let's hear from you. What do you think about that quote I gave?
So having a goal and having the faith that you will reach it, it sort of reminds me of, when the ship charts its course and for port, and 95% of the time you won't see the port until the very end. You won't see it till the very end. And so as it's going through its journey, there's because you can't see it, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. And it's just being able to consistently take the actions, the direction, the turns, the adjustments, whatever it is you need to do, knowing that you're with the faith, believing and knowing that you are going to hit ports, that you're going to hit your objective, your goal. And so that's why it's always important for me to tie goal to this, and also getting emotionally involved with it and just really feeling it. And, so that's why for myself, and I tell clients, when you have your goal, write it out, feel it. How are you emotionally attached to it? Or else it's just, I might as well just have a shopping list. Like, it doesn't matter. Right. Yeah. And so if I can get really engaged in it energetically, spiritually, however, emotionally, then that helps on the days that I don't feel like, I don't feel like lacing up. I don't feel like doing that, but I know that I'll do the next right indicated action because I have the faith and knowledge that I will hit where I need to go. And so I think consistency that's where that is built in, because I need to be on that path, taking the actions as needed to hit the mark.
Being consistent isn't easy, and it can be hard for some people to achieve a level of consistency for a lot of things in their lives. So I wanted to share this part of the interview with Eric G. Reed, where he speaks into the things that can contribute to our inability to stay consistent.
It's not rooted in them. Often it's rooted in a 21-day challenge, an 11-day challenge, a this and a that challenge, where they're trying to prove externally that they can be consistent. Now, sometimes that'll get us started, but it doesn't keep us going. Until we can really root in our purpose and our understanding and our beliefs, why we need this. And in some cases, it's a matter of just survival. And in other cases, it's a matter of growing into our bigger self. And so I know for me, and I mean, there are mornings that I'm like, I am not coming. I am not doing the live. I'm not showing up. I'm not in it. The makeup crew is running late. Nothing is going to work. And then I remember back to, okay, so why did you say you were going to do this? Did you say it because you needed 10,000 followers or X number of? No, you said because your purpose is to grow and to guide others to growth. Mm-hmm. So is that changed just because of some external event? No. Okay. So shut up, get moving, get it done. It's that knowing and not being knocked out of the knowing that really holds you past. Now, like I said, the challenges, yeah, they get you started, but in the long haul, it's exhausting playing other people's tennis game.
And then Melanie, David, and Renee all added to the discussion. Listen in and find out what the dirty little F word is, the importance of finding your why, and how the role of emotions play a major part in our consistency. What do you suspect might be challenges for people getting to be consistent? I mean, we see it all the time, right? Like they're New Year's resolutions, really.
I love this topic because I think we all say it has to be a big goal to be consistent. Like it can't be something small. And so my own personal experience was going through a job transition. And I didn't have anything consistent in my life. I felt like everything was out of control. So what I did, like Eric referenced, I took a challenge for 31 days to get up every morning and to start a Bible study. And that has turned into a lot of clarity for what the next steps were. Right? I didn't know how to start that. I didn't know what it was going to look like. But now it's been over 6 months that we've been doing this every single day. And so, you know, it's how somebody said this earlier, but it's how we do one thing is how we do everything. And so when you start to realize that you can practice consistency, you can do that in any part of your life, right? It doesn't have to say, I'm going to go climb a mountain. I'm going to go run a marathon. I'm going to load the dishes in the dishwasher every day, right?
Yeah.
It can start like that. So the fear and I think the ability for somebody to see that it's just a little thing in your life that you can have control over. And that makes you feel even like making your bed, right? Getting up and doing that one thing, it will help you gain that clarity in your life to be able to do bigger things.
I'm glad you said the F word, the dirty little F word, and that's fear. David, let's roll over to you.
One of the things that was rolling around in my head really came from a couple of things that a couple of the panelists said today. One was that Eric said is connecting to your why. Like, why am I doing this? You know, you talked about, Greg, New Year's resolutions and why do those fail all the time? Well, so many times, and I think Paul said this too, emotionally, we're not connected to them. But when we connect to our why is this important to us? And if we make that connection, and then if we create the belief that it can happen, you know, something that Dennis said is we have to believe that it's going to happen. It's done. And when we do that, but sometimes that gets hard. And you know, just like climbing the mountain, there's parts of the, you know, when altitude takes over and when climbing is difficult, and we need somebody else. We need a partner to come alongside of us.
Renee, talk to us a little bit more about this.
This comes up a lot for me with my female clients, particularly around emotions and the fact that so many of us allow ourselves to be led and dictated by our emotions, waiting to feel like we want to do something, waiting for inspiration to hit before we write that next chapter of the book, or waiting to feel like we want to train. And I don't feel like it today. And, oh no, it's not the right day to do that project. And I'll wait till it comes up next week. And learning how to master our emotions is just such a blessing. And it is such a powerful activity. That's when we become a real master of learning how to ignore that. And like we said, doing those little things over time, whether we want to or not. And once we do have those daily habits in our life, that's when we start going, oh, you know, just go and do it because you're never going to like yourself if you don't. But emotions are a big one. Do it regardless of how you feel.
Man, that was awesome. Okay, so now you can see why this has become my all-time favorite episode. I'm loving this. So next, I asked everybody to share some advice on how others could get better at becoming more consistent. And this is what they told me.
Get an accountability partner. Get 2 or more people to show up with you. And whatever that is, I don't care. Go check the mail together at the same time. But it's doing something with someone else so that you do show up for them and for yourself. It changes your belief that you actually can do something. And then again, with momentum, like we've all talked about, it will continue to enhance your confidence, and you will think about bigger things that you can then do and more people that you can pull into your circle.
One of the things that helped me to be consistent with my workouts and with my health was a partner. I mean, for so many years, I had a partner that showed up every day, and he and I went to the gym together. We met at the gym, or we met at his house to go for a bike ride or what have you. But that other person, you know, at least one other person, you've got to do that, and then start small.
I would say go public. You know, it's one thing to have an accountability partner, but you have to go public, whatever public looks like for you. Because in the beginning, that's going to make, I mean, we all fear being called out, good or bad. We all, like, that's the worst thing. So go public with a small group, with your team, with your organization. Your spouse is not public, by the way, because they are probably the one person that doesn't want you to succeed at consistency, because then that changes their world and they may not be ready.
Finding a mentor. So I had one throughout the stage where I was coming out of addiction, and again became a Christian, and really quite quickly and rapidly went from one world to another, not having any clue how to do that safely or sustainably. So a mentor for me was imperative. And because it had such great effects for me and reaped such great rewards, I've continued that throughout my entire life, both personally and professionally.
Look inward and check in and see and be very honest. Is this what you really want? Is this what you really want? Or is it something you think you should be doing? And, you know, because we don't get what we want, we get what we feel about what we want. And so if we feel unworthy, if we feel that we're doing this for someone else, if we feel that there's just too much around it, then we're not going to be consistent. So for me, it would be checking in with yourself. And if that requires a coach, a therapist, you know, being very honest with some close friends, whatever it is, or even just journaling and figuring out, do I really want this? Or is it something that just sounds good, or because so-and-so thinks it's a good idea?
They need to expect adversity. Expect adversity and embrace obstacles, because it's telling you you're going in the right direction. If it's so easy a caveman can do it, you're going in the wrong direction. One other thing that came to my mind, and goes with what Paul said about looking inward, it's guarding your self-talk. And Eric Reed, I know, is big on this too. And also address your fear. Name your fear. Get it out on paper. It's one thing to put your goal out there. Well, put your adversary out there too. Who is it?
Hopefully those tips are helpful for you. Great advice. Okay, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that stroll down memory lane with me. It was a great day for me, and this one will always remain one of my favorites. All right. So I promised you last week that you would find out what the Lion's Den has in store for the weekly roar. So here it is. Next Wednesday, I'm going to kick off another leadership series, and I'm going to call this one Mentoring Moments in Leadership. For the next 6 months. That's right, 6 months. Every week, I'm going to take you on a journey where I'm going to spend some time speaking about lessons learned in leadership. This next series is intended to help leaders get better at leading. Leaders have to continually work at getting better, whether they're leading a company, leading their families, leading a community, or just leading themselves. There's going to be something for everyone in this next series. Whether you're a leader just beginning or a seasoned leader who is starting to raise other leaders, I hope you're ready to continue our journey together and will join me next week as I start this new series by sharing one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in leadership. And it required me to completely rewire the way I was thinking. If you want to find out what that lesson was for me, come on back to the Lion's Den next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining me for this review of the 100th episode of the Weekly Roar as I strolled down memory lane as we shared our thoughts and feelings about consistency. I'm glad you joined us today in the Weekly Roar. I appreciate you so much. And until we meet again next Wednesday, remember, be powerful, but stay poised just like a lion. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Weekly Roar live event at lionenterprise.com. If you enjoyed this video, please tell others to join us each week here in the Lion's Den. Thanks again, and see you next week.